This is the King's Court on Arena Sportsnet, presented by American Grappler.
I've got more swagger than Mick Jagger, more sex appeal than Vince Neil.
All guests from all walks of life share their time with the King of Connecticut.
They are dreaming of just one night with a man such as myself.
Any and everything goes.
I am the King of Connecticut. I was raised with class and sophistication.
And now, from Norwalk, Connecticut, weighing in at 230 pounds, if George Clooney had muscles, they'd call him the King of Connecticut. The one, the only, Matt Granahan.
Hello, this is the pernicious purveyor of preposterous pomposity, manipulating the minuscule minds of the masses of miscreants. Your host, the King of Connecticut, and I have had a long day. I have been on the road since 6:30 a.m. this morning. I was up deep in the mountains of North Carolina, beautiful country out there. Outside of Asheville in Marshall, North Carolina, was meeting with Fox Hill Meadery out there. Jason Russ, who's a veteran brewer. He's been a brewer for 10 years. He's had that meadery now for 10 years, and we're going to be adding him to our lineup, to our portfolio at Arat Import. And for you folks that don't know what meads are honey wines, and this guy runs the gamut. A lot of times meads are too sweet. A lot of times they're bubblegum sweet, candy sweet. These meads are just right. And he even has some high-gravity meads that mimic ports and sherries. They were fantastic. And then from there, I was at the Shoeless Brewery in Greenville, South Kakalaki. Coach Matthew Shane Perkle, was kind enough to meet me out there and introduce me to these guys. And we're going to be picking up their products as well. And while there, we were joined by Rise Guys morning host from 93.3 The Planet FM, Jeff Lewis Neal, who is also a two-time state champion here in South Carolina in wrestling and a standout wrestler at Anderson College. He came out to join Coach Perkle and I and to sample these beers. And if I sound a little tired, if I sound a little run down, it's because I've had a long day of sampling. We've got Dan the Beast Severn coming into town to do some wrestling clinics with me this weekend. UFC Hall of Famer, WWE superstar, but what you may not know is Master Thespian. Dan is a star in some movies such as Swamp Zombies, and we'll talk to Dan. We're going to have him on the show. He's going to be staying here at the house Sunday night. We're going to do a little recording from my outside bar. Dan is a guy that's been a buddy of mine for literally decades, and always good to have him coming into town. And he's going to be a guest with me on the Rise Guys on the Planet on that morning show to promote the clinics. And we also have an autograph signing at the Gold's Gym in Anderson, South Kakalaki. By the time you all hear this recording, all that may have already transpired. But just want to give you a taste of what my day has been like. It has been a long day. I literally just walked in the door 2 minutes ago, and I reached out to my guest. We have a very special guest on the show. This young lady is, I like to call her, the gorgeous younger sister of UFC women's bantamweight champion Miesha Tate. I have Michelle Tate Schmidt on the phone. Michelle, are you there?
I am here.
Welcome to the King's Court, Michelle. How are you doing tonight? I understand you're at a wrestling tournament this evening.
I am doing great, and yeah, actually I am attending my youngest daughter's wrestling tournament tonight.
That's outstanding. And, you know, a lot of people may not know that the Tate family, there are some very tough men in the family as well. We know about the women, but there's some tough men, and I'd like to just give you the floor and tell the listeners the story of what transpired, some of the heroes of men in your family, and the Crime Stoppers, as I understand it.
Yeah. A couple months ago, evidently a gentleman decided to steal a car and give the police quite a chase in the Tacoma area, and he ended up coming into our little suburb, which is in unincorporated Pierce County, and wrecking the car, and I think there were gunshots fired, and for whatever reason, this gentleman decided he was going to hightail it into our woods and elude the police. So he did for a couple hours, but my husband and my son weren't going to put up with that because they didn't want this person on our property. That's not safe for us. So they didn't give up looking for him, and sure enough, they located him, and my son was able to take him down and put him in a chokehold until the police were called and were able to come back and arrest him. So that was awesome. Exciting.
But that is
Those
awesome.
are my guys.
I saw the pictures. That's awesome. Now, does your son, does he train alongside Misha?
You know, he's 7 years younger, so they didn't train alongside. I would say that Misha tortured him. Definitely wasn't training alongside. She was kind of a bully to him in fun. But he did MMA for a couple years, and then just decided that wasn't going to be what he wanted to do. So he is in construction and in moving now. So he's doing his own thing.
And do you have a pretty big family out there in Washington State?
We do. The maternal side, we have a lot of family members out here, yeah. And they're all very supportive. So it's been an easy transition to watch the girls in the family go into, sports that weren't necessarily seen to be dominated by women. When you've got a family backing you and they come to meets and they want to watch you perform, and win or lose, they're proud of you. It really helps a person feel good about what they're doing, and I think that encourages athletes. So we're lucky. We're blessed that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, growing up, Bisha, how old was she when she started wrestling?
She was actually old. She was 14, 15 when she started, and it was a whim. She was trying to choose between sports, and the only things that were available that particular season were basketball or wrestling, and she said, well, I'm just too short to really do anything great with basketball. Let me try this wrestling thing. And she tried it and fell in love with it, and stuck with it, and by her seat, champion.
Yeah, that is awesome. And now, after high school, did she get into the mixed martial arts right away, or did she go into freestyle or grappling?
It's funny that you asked that. She ended up going to Central Washington University, and while she was there, she was introduced to a friend who said, have you ever tried mixed martial arts, because you're quite the wrestler? And she said, no, I haven't. What is that? And they said, it's got a lot of wrestling in it, but just come check it out. So she did, and she used to drive 30, 40 minutes off campus to go to these MMA meets. And that was how she got started. And she came to me and she said, Mom, I think I really enjoy this sport. Well, her dad had been an MMA fan since Pancreas. So I wasn't thrilled to think that my daughter was going to be doing this, as a hobby or otherwise. And when I told the husband about it, he was even less thrilled. He was pretty adamant that it wasn't going to happen. I was a little more open-minded. But she decided to do it, and she had her first amateur bout, and she got her butt handed to her on a platter. So it was really hard for me to watch. She had a concussion and a broken nose, and I said to myself, goodness, if this is the first real meet that she's ever had and this is what's happened to her, this could only get worse. And I wanted to support her because I knew it was something she wanted to do, but at the same time it was hard for me not to be realistic about the outcome and what are you going to get from this? They don't even promote women in this sport. What in the world are you thinking? Stay in college. But, it took her 2 weeks to kind of get her head wrapped around that beating. And she decided that, no, she did want to continue to do it. So I said, okay, if you're sure this is what you do, I'm 110% on board. Let's make something happen. And it kind of just took off from there.
That's awesome. And just to backtrack a little bit, you mentioned Pancras, and a gentleman that's out there in Washington State that I deal with, and I got Kamal Shalaroof's book to One Fighting Championships, and we're working on getting Adam Dehart into one right now in Asia. And the main man for One Fighting Championships was a Pancras fighter, started out as a Pancras fighter, and he is out there in Washington. And I'm speaking about Matt Hume. Did Misha have any interaction with Matt Hume?
No, not in the beginning. She's met him since then. But no, we kind of had to go on this one kind of cold turkey. I would say the biggest celebrity that we met in the beginning in that first year or 15 months that she was pursuing this was Dennis Hallman, Superman. So,
yeah, Dennis Hallman was actually training under Matt Hume out there. Yeah, and a lot of people don't know, for people that don't know Dennis Hallman, he's the only guy that has 2 victories over Matt Hughes. He was very successful.
Yeah, he's a great guy. So he was wonderful, and he helped Misha get her first professional contract, and that was with Strikeforce. So he got that for her in 2010, and from there on it was many, many road trips between Mom and Misha, getting her out there, getting the promotions, meeting with people, knocking on doors, begging, pleading, come see what we have. And what she has to offer, what she has to show. And it seemed like she was a product that people wanted to be involved with. She was very sellable, very marketable, along with being talented, because she just has a great personality. She's very upbeat, and she was so eager and so hungry to do something that women weren't being encouraged to do at the time. And she saw so many other girls struggle prior to her even getting into the sport, and they hadn't gone anywhere. They'd kind of beaten up their bodies, and, they were just kind of aging and being coaches or trainers or going off and getting married and not really pursuing anything because the opportunities weren't out there. So when Scott Coker was in charge of Strikeforce, and he said that he wouldn't mind, getting the girls out there, of course that was the first thing we wanted to do, was get Misha out there and showcase her. And what better place to do it than at the Cyborg Carano fight. So for Misha's birthday, and she's my birthday twin, so it was actually both our birthdays, we went down there, and we went unannounced. We weren't asking for any kind of attention. We just went there, and Misha wanted to see all the lights and all the action first thing, so face-to-face, and see if this was really, really what she wanted to do. And we went, and we were so lucky. We got to meet both of the girls, and Misha, because she was doing some journalism in college, she was able to do some interviews with the girls pre and post, and she came out of that experience and said, this is definitely what I want to do. So again, we were on board. This time I was 150% on board, and we made things happen, and look where she is today after 10 years. Yeah,
that's awesome. And you talk about the Carano Cyborg fight, and when that was taking place in women's MMA, that was the highest point you could go, because a lot of people may not know, Dana White had previously sworn he would never have female fights on the UFC,
absolutely,
on the fighting championships.
So we were very aware of that. Yeah,
that's an uphill battle. And what do you think was a turning point for Zuffa and for UFC to start doing women's MMA?
Well, I've got to say that they, at the turnout for Cyborg and Carano, I don't think it was a great fight. I wish the girls had been a little better matched. I wish it had lasted a little bit longer. But it showed that the enthusiasm, that the audience was there for it. So you have to take notice of that. And then for Strikeforce, some of their best fights ever that sold out were the female fights were what brought the people in. So you had to take notice of that. And then to have Ronda Rousey come in on the scene and see what she was capable of doing and seeing how people wanted to see her succeed, it was a commodity that nobody was taking advantage of yet. And I think Dana, Zuffa, I think the men who were against women training and doing this for a living, I think that they really had to stand up and take notice and say, you know, these girls have worked twice as hard to be considered half as good. Let's see where they go. What could UFC have lost at that point? They couldn't lose anything at this point. They were already big enough to invest in the girls, and if the girls didn't take off, they could always let that go. But as it turned out, it not only took off, it has skyrocketed. I mean, look at it, it's the fastest growing sport in the world right now. How do you ignore that? You know, and Dana, he's the consummate businessman. I mean, you know, he's not going to pass something up that has opportunity. I think it would kill him to have to pass something up that has opportunity. And he knows how to promote, and he knows how to push things, and he knows how to make things grow and blossom and turn into profit. So, yeah, I think Strikeforce really showcased the girls well, and UFC couldn't help but take notice. So I think that was a big turning point.
And at that point, too, I mean, he was buying everybody. You know, he bought WEC and then Strikeforce. Of course, Pride was the big one. So he kind of was the only game in town. So if he wasn't going to allow women's MMA, aside from the smaller promotions and the smaller independent circuit, there was really nowhere to go as a female fighter if he didn't add it.
That's very true. That's very true. So it was really an honor that Misha was asked as the second female fighter to sign on. That was really, really an honor. What a dream come true.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just to take an aside from her fighting career, we had on the show my good buddy Sal Franciosa, the executive producer of a movie called Fight Valley, which I have a small role in, and Misha is the star. She plays Jabs in the movie, and I'm going to tell you, we talked at length to Sal about the movie, and he said he was shocked at what a natural Misha is on the screen, and she really does have, like you mentioned, you alluded to the it factor. So I think she has a career outside of combat sports awaiting her as well.
I would agree. Yeah, she's very confident in front of the camera. She's always been very confident when it came to doing speeches in school. She's a great orator. She has good eye contact. And I think it's because she's just a happy person in general. She doesn't get intimidated very easily. And she loves to learn from her mistakes. She just really sees them as challenges.
And she exudes a positive energy too, which you see.
Yeah.
And I'll say, you know, using a term like heel, I think Ronda Rousey more is a heel. She doesn't really exude. By the time she walks out to the cage, she doesn't really exude a positivity. She's got that nasty, mean look, and she seems to take a lot of things personally. Whereas Misha seems to exude positivity. She seems to be the diametrical opposite of a Ronda Rousey.
I think you're right. I think that they've walked very, very different lives, and I think their experiences have, molded their personalities to be very different. The one thing I do see that they have in common is they're both very driven. They're both dedicated to whatever they put their mind to. Their dedication is just amazing, and they enjoy a challenge. So I think that makes for great cage combat, I guess would be a good way of putting it. I know they've had some nice little verbal combats too in the media.
Yeah,
but I would say
it always sells the fight. I mean, it's just you've got to have that friction, whether how much of it is real or just perceived. You've got to have.
Yeah, I'd say a lot of it's real between those two.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say Ronda Rousey. I knew Ronda Rousey briefly. Gene LaBelle did a forward for my book, and I've been trained out there years ago at Highstein in California, where she came from, and I knew her briefly. Didn't know her well. It was before she was popular as she is now. But one of my best friends and a guy managed Kamal Shalarush knew her extremely well and trained with her extremely well. And I kind of just say that the people that know her, they don't always have the most positive things to say, about her. I think that persona that she exudes, that heel persona, there's a lot of truth to it.
I think my daughter would probably agree with you.
Yes, absolutely.
And Misha is just the opposite. She's much more warm and inviting, and happy, and she's a bounce back girl. She gets that from her mom. If you get knocked down, you get up, you dust it off, and you start again.
And she's got the leading lady good looks that she gets from her mom as well.
Oh, I don't know about that, but thank you.
Yeah, so I want to talk to you about what you must have been on cloud nine. Now, Holly Holm, very nice young lady, and I know she and Misha worked on the movie together and got along great personally. But how exciting was it to see your daughter in epic fashion win the UFC Women's Championship?
I don't even think I can verbalize what was going through my mind or my heart, the joy to see her finally do it, and to have not given up. There were so many naysayers and sponsors and business people that said, oh, give it up, you've lost to Ronda twice, it's never going to happen, turn a new page. And she did turn a new page. She turned a page to even more training, more dedication, and moving forward and getting that belt. And again, that's my bounce back girl. So to see her hit about as rock bottom as you can get, and then come back and reach the peak. I don't know how I would put that in words. I was just overjoyed. I was very pleased for her. I feel ecstatic that she knew she had this and she tapped into it, was able to pull it up. And she's got a great team around her right now, too. In the past, she hasn't had quite the support and the training that she needed. But she does now, and I'm glad that she's been able to tap into that and draw as much energy and training to become who she's become today. But to sum it up in a sentence, boy, that's a hard one. I can only just tell you, Mama was very, very pleased. Extremely pleased.
and I'll say, I think that's got to be the fight of the year so far, because that was an unbelievable finish.
I think that card had two amazing upsets. Yeah, that was quite the card. That's a great card to be sitting at, I'll tell you.
Oh yeah, but the fight she had there with Holly Holm was as exciting as you could get. And
I think so. So.
Man, I mean, and the finish was spectacular. The way that she held on to that choke and rolled through, that was spectacular. It couldn't have been any more exciting. Aside from talking about your daughter, I wanted to get into some of your activities and hobbies. Obviously, you're there with your younger daughter at the wrestling tournament. What are some activities that you like to partake of out there in Washington State?
Baking. I love to bake, and
awesome. You're making me hungry. I've had a long day. We drank a lot of beer and mead, but I haven't eaten yet, so I'm starving.
Oh, now we're talking Misha country, because she likes beer and cupcakes. I like beer and cake. So
oh, nice.
Yeah. So that's how Misha parties after her wins. She goes out and eats cupcakes and drinks beer. So the baking, that's my big hobby. I love to cook. I love to bake, and garden. Just pretty down-to-earth person. Other than, canning.
Great.
I like to do the domestic engineer things, although I'm not above picking up a shovel or washing a car, but I like being the domestic engineer. I like to be the queen of my castle.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's outstanding. Yeah. And I love to cook. I'm not really bake, but I just love to cook. And I'm on the road a lot. I feel like a gypsy running around on the road because my job's constantly on the road. But whenever I'm home, I love to cook. I was wondering about that, and I was also curious something kind of funny. I noticed you liked my status there about my commentary on this primary that's going on, this wacky presidential primary, and I'll kind of say what I wrote on there was just my own observation. Was I used a fable, and I don't know if the listeners know this fable or not. It was a fable I was actually taught this fable by a wrestling coach years ago, and it's the Lion and the Wildebeest, the story of the Lion and the Wildebeest. And I likened Ted Cruz to the Wildebeest and Donald Trump to the Lion. And the way the story goes is the Wildebeest is very jealous of the Lion because the Lion is bigger, faster, stronger, more successful, and better looking. So the Wildebeest, in that state of despair, goes out and finds another disgruntled wildebeest to go after the lion. And that's when the wildebeest learns that the lion is the king of the jungle. So I saw you like that, and I always like that phrase, and I thought it kind of applied to what's going on with this crazy election cycle right now.
I think it definitely does. I also like that story because it kind of fits Misha's life. It kind of fits my life. It's what I try to raise my daughters because it's how my mother raised me. That people are going to come at you when they can't be you. So, always be your best, and those that see you and love you at your best, they'll always have your back. But there will always be those few that can never be you or are too lazy to try to be like you, so they'd rather attack you and bring you down to their level. But because you're you, you won't ever drop to that level. There'll always be a success. So we were kind of, grew up on that. And as women, we knew we had to work twice as hard to be that success, and that no matter what people said or some of the old-fashioned gender gaps that were there, that we could overcome them, that there was no excuse to not overcome them. We didn't care that we were female. We didn't care if we were a minority. We didn't care if we wanted to do something. We were going to do the best we could, and nobody was going to put us down. And I kind of see that the election is going that way, and I can see why you took that story and compared it to the election. I agree. And I think there are some real poopy people running for office right now. I'm not pleased with everybody running, but again, the story just seems to relate. And I relate to it, too, because I've known about that story since I was a kid, and I agree with it. There's a reason why certain people are lions, and there's people that choose to be wildebeest.
Yeah, and there's another great quote, because you talk about the criticisms that your daughter, that Misha encounters, and anybody who is successful, particularly in combat sports, encounters. And there's another great quote, and I'll try to remember it, is let's see how this one goes. Wolves don't lose sleep over the opinions of sheep, or something to that regard. And that, to me, and I've talked to, I had Adam Dehart on the show, who's been a buddy of mine for years. He's a youngster still in his career. We're trying to get him into ONE FC, but he just won a dominant fight in Legacy on Access TV, and he's kind of an up-and-coming fighter. And one thing that Adam has kind of struggled with, and I've talked to him privately about this, we talked about it on the show, is these MMA fans, a good deal of the fans, and you go on all these websites, are so critical of all the fighters, and it's almost like a mental illness, to a degree. With these couch potato fans, what they say, and it's easy to get that under your skin. But like you said, the way that you've raised Misha, she's not going to let that get to her. She's going to keep her head held up high, and realize that she's above that.
Right. Yes. Well, I think that I've had to teach the girls that in the family, because they we're going to run into that no matter what, whether they're in that sport or not. But I think you're right. I think that sport tends to draw in a lot of people that wish they were bigger or stronger or faster or better. Since they can't be or don't want to work towards being that, it's easy to watch and then criticize from, like you said, a couch or a computer keyboard. I get a lot of flack on my Facebook page from people. It's never bothered me. I couldn't care less. Everybody's entitled to their opinion.
Mm-hmm.
It won't change who I am. It won't change the way I raise my daughters. It won't change my outlook on life. We're bounce-back girls, and we're not going to give up. We're just going to do the best that we can do. And we won't please everybody all the time, and that's not our goal. What our goal is to live a full life, to be happy, and to bring as much happiness as we can to other people while we're making ourselves happy. It's not about worrying if everybody else is also happy. I mean, of course, we want to do that, and I think that's the bonus of being a happy person yourself. You tend to exude that, and people will pick up on that. But again, you're always going to have those wildebeest. You're always going to have the whiny sheep off in the distance. Not my problem. Not my problem.
Yeah.
I wish them well, but not my problem.
Excellent. Well, on that note, I want to thank you for being a guest on the King's Court. It was absolutely a pleasure to have you on, and I want to give you the opportunity to have the floor of anything you'd like to promote or anything else you'd like to discuss.
Well, of course, I just want to promote women's MMA. I want to say that I love UFC and I love Invicta. You're going to see the best girls fighting with Invicta. So, I always push for that. I want to watch the girls and I want to see the girls succeed. So that's where my heart is at. And I want to promote your show, and I want to promote Fight Valley, which is going to come out on July 22nd.
Awesome.
I want everybody to go and see that movie. So
everybody got to check out Fight Valley. The trailers have been released online. You can check them out. And like I was saying, Sal Franciosa, my good buddy, executive producer of that show, was in awe of your daughter's performance. She was a natural, and that's really going to be one of many, I think, for her acting career, should she choose to continue to go down that road. So I've had a long day, but I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, and everybody have a great day or evening, and we're signing off.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Have a good night.
Let me tell you about American Grappler Wrestling and MMA Outfitters. American Grappler makes shirts that honor the American wrestling and combat sports tradition unlike any other brand on the market today. And I'm going to tell you a little personal story. American Grappler just did a tribute shirt to my coach, my mentor, one of my best friends, the legendary Billy Wicks, who just passed on. And all of the profits of this shirt are going to Billy Wicks' family. That's what kind of a brand this is. They are not just an advertiser on the King's Court. They are not just an advertiser on the Arena Sports Network. They have become family. And let me tell you something else about American Grappler. Their shirts are of the finest quality. I've been training in these shirts and wearing them proudly for years. Support American wrestling heritage. Go to AmericanGrappler.us today. You'll be happy you did.